Dr. Ugochukwu Ezeogo. I will handle the course titled Introduction to the New Testament. Introduction to the New Testament. So we are going to look at the background of the New Testament. Before we can understand what happened in the New Testament, you have to look at the intertestamental period. Intertestamental period. Intertestamental period. It is also known as a silent period. It is a period between the last book of the Old Testament known as Malachi and the beginning of the New Testament book called Matthew. So intertestamental period is a period between 400 BC to 4 BC. It is very, very important to note that the Old Testament captured how the Jews were conquered or overthrown by the Babylonians and later the Persians. So there was a conquest from Babylonian to the Persians, down to the Greek, and Greek to the Romans. So the Romans took Israel, the Israelites, to Babylon. And this period of the Persian is between 539 to 332 BC. And this Greek period is 332 BC to 167 BC. The Romans is 167 onward. So it's very, very important for us to understand that the Persian period began from 539 to 332 BC. So Persia's empire, conquered by Babylon, allowed the Jewish exiles to return to their homeland, Jerusalem. And that marked a significant restoration of the Jerusalem of Israel's history. So under the Persian rule like Cyrus, the Jews were granted religious freedom to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem and re-establish their worship. So under the Greek period, that is between 332 to 167 BC. BC means before Christ, while AD means after Christ. So this period of the Greek ushered the conquest of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great conquered the whole empire, overthrew the Persians, and one of the significant things he did was to Hellenize the empire. Hellenization has to do with making the empire adapt the Greek culture, Greek language, even Greek ways of life. So, Greek custom were deeply influenced in Jewish society. So, this aggressive policy of Antiochus IV Epiphanes, including the desecrations of the Jerusalem temple, provoked what we call Maccabean revolt. Maccabean revolt. So the desecrations of the temple led Mattathias and his son Judas Maccabeus to fight against to defend the Jewish people. So, and the essence of the fight was to preserve Jewish identity and worship Jewish identity. So the Maccabean revolt is between 167 to 116 BC. So we are going to see the Roman period. The Roman period is between 63 to upward 63. That is 63 upward. 63, 167 to 160 is the Maccabean time. 63 is upward. That is Roman period. It is also very important for us to know that the New Testament period captures the Roman period. That is the Roman New. Matthew chapter 2 told us that Jesus was born during the time of the reign of Herod the Great. So one of the things that's so remarkable at that time is that the Herod the Great expanded the temple in Jerusalem, and his leadership witnessed oppressive and high taxations. So this Roman period and contributing to social unrest. So the development of Jewish identity as sectarian movement. So this development gave rise to what we call strict adherence to the law, that is the Torah, as identity marker. 2. Different interpretations of the law led to the formations of the sects, the Pharisee, the Sadducee, the Essenes, and the Zealots. So increased emphasis on purity, covenant faithfulness, and hope for divine intervention. So this development witnessed strict adherence to the law, different interpretations of the law led to the formation of the sects, Pharisees, Sadducees, the Essenes, and the Zealots. So we are going to look at the political context. One cannot understand the New Testament without looking at the political context. Number one thing you have to note is that the New Testament period was under the Roman Empire. Under the Roman Empire. And the religion is controlled by Pontius Pilate. So during the time of Caesar Augustus, the empire witnessed what we call relative peace, known as pars Romana. So pars Romana has to do with relative peace. There was high level of transportations and communications. So although the period witnessed a heavy taxation, strict administrations, and occasional brutality. Governors such as Pontius Pilate, representing the Roman authorities locally, often clashing with the Jewish sensitivities and religious practices. So Roman Empire and Italian governors, the New Testament took place within the first political framework of the Roman Empire, particularly during the reign of Caesar Augustus and his successors, who established a centralized system of independent governance that combined military strength with administration's efficiency. The Herodian dynasty and regional authority. Herodian dynasty began is Herod the Great. Herod the Great. Herod. Herod the Great. Jesus was born during the time of Herod the Great. Herod the Great ruled from 37 BC to 4th BC. So his kingdom was divided among his sons. That is Herod Archelaus, who ruled Samaria, Judea, and Idumea. We have Herod Antipas, who governed Galilee and Galilee, and Philip the Tetrarch, who controlled the northern territories of Etruria and Tritonatus. Luke chapter 3, verse 1. So these sons ruled as tetrarchs under the Roman authority, continuing their father's legacies. Remember that when Joseph was coming back with his wife Mary, and with baby Jesus, when the son of Archelaus was in the place of his father in Judea, they now went to Galilee to settle. They now went to Galilee in a small city known as Nazareth. So the socio-economic conditions under the Roman rule, it is very, very important to know that the wealthy people at that time, they are the minority group. Majority, they are not wealthy. So those people who are wealthy are those who work with the Romans. So you can say that the wealthy wealth was concentrated among the small elites, often including the priestly family, tax contractors, just like Levi, the tax collector, who was also known as Matthew. He was a wealthy person, and those aligned with the Roman authority, while most people were peasants, depending on agriculture for survival. And some of them were also fishermen. They were doing fishing. So let's look at the number 2. We're going to look at the religious contest. You have seen the political contest. Let's see the religious contest. Number 2, religious contest. Religious contest. So the New Testament period witnessed some religious groups like the Pharisees, the Sadducees, like the Essenes, and the Zealots. So the Pharisees were the religious people. They were a Jewish religious group during the New Testament period, known for their strict devotions to the law of Moses and the oral traditions that interpreted it. So it was this group of people that Jesus called the hypocrites, because they do not practice what they teach. So another group of people were known as the Sadducees. The Sadducees were influential Jewish religious and political group during the New Testament period, largely composed of the priestly aristocracy and wealthy families connected to the Jerusalem temple. These people, Sadducees, are connected to the Jerusalem temple. There are certain people, sometimes they are in opposition to the teachings of the Pharisees. They do not believe in resurrection of the dead. They do not believe in the angels. And one thing with even the afterlife, one thing with the Sadducees is that they were generally cooperating with the Roman authority. They cooperate with the Roman authority, seeking to preserve their social status. Their interest is to preserve their social status and influence within the existing power structure. The interest of the Pharisees was not on the political aspect, but you can see that the Sadducees had interest in influencing the existing power, the power structure. That's why they work closely with the Roman authority. And in essence, we are also a religious sect. These things are sects. They are also concepts or groups. In essence, we are religious Jewish sects. During the Second Temple period, known for their strict emphasis of ritual purity, communal living, separation from what they consider the moral corruption of the mainstream society. For the essence, they see the society as being corrupt. They see the temple as being polluted. So for the essence, they have to separate themselves from the public worship. They do not participate in Jerusalem worship. And for a very strong emphasis on obedience to the law of Moses, but interpreted it in a highly rigorous and separatist manner. Their writing reveals an expectation of the evident costly struggle between the Son of Light and the Son of Darkness, reflecting apocalyptic beliefs about the end time. The Zealots were a Jewish nationalist movement during the New Testament period who strongly opposed the Roman rule over Judea. But the Zealots, they do not like the Romans. The Zealots said, do not like the Romans. So whatever they do is to make sure that the Roman people, the Roman authority, do not decide over the affairs of the Jews. So the Zealots, they believe that God alone shall rule Israel, and therefore regard the Roman occupation as both political oppression and religious rebellion against God. For the Zealots, the Roman authority is a rebellion, is in the state of rebellion against God. But the Zealots, God is their king. So, and the Zealots engaged as an organized force. It was an organized force in the 1st century AD, encouraging armed resistance against the Roman authorities, and the Jewish collaborators do not like it. So whatever they do is to make sure that the Roman people, the Roman authority, do not decide over the affairs of the Jews. So the Zealots, they believe that God alone shall rule Israel, and therefore regard the Roman occupation as both political oppression and religious rebellion against God. For the Zealots, the Roman authority is a rebellion, is in the state of rebellion against God. For the Zealots, God is their king. So, and the Zealots engaged as an organized force. It was an organized force in the 1st century AD, encouraging armed resistance against the Roman authorities and the Jewish collaborators. Anybody that collaborates with the Romans, they resist such collaboration. So for them, they do not like Roman dominion. So their actions contributed significantly to unrest in Judea, eventually leading to open revolt against Rome. They voted against Rome in 1866. There was open revolt against Rome in 1866, which culminated in the destructions of Jerusalem in AD 70. So the Zealots has a role. So they are the key factor that makes unrest in Rome, and such revolt in AD 60 eventually led to the destructions of Jerusalem in AD 70. So another thing is to have seen the political contest, the religious contest, and religious groups. Now you are going to see the cultural contest, cultural and linguistic contest. It is also very important to note that during the time of Alexander the Great, he was able to realize the empire and enforce Greek culture, Greek custom, Greek language on the people. So, and Greek became the official language of the empire. So, calling Greek as a lingua franca means a common language used throughout the Roman Empire, serving as a bridge of communications among people of different cultures, tribes, and regions. So people from different cultures and tribes have to, in fact, Alexander the Great created a sense of communication where people from different backgrounds can come together to interact, exchange ideas, even understand themselves. So the New Testament was written in common Greek, which allowed the message of Jesus Christ to reach a broad audience beyond Jewish community. So diasporic Judaism and synagogue system. It is very, very important to know that diasporic Judaism means the practice of Judaism outside Palestine. Palestine is a city or a region where the Jews live. And Palestine has, in fact, in the Shushu political section of Palestine, we have the region, the Judea, Galilee, and Samaria. So, during the New Testament time, the Jewish communities living outside Palestine in various parts of the ancient world, including major cities like Alexandria and Antioch. Despite being scattered, this community maintains strong religious identity. Through devotions to the law, the scriptures, and ancestral tradition. And finally, Messianic expectations. It is very, very important for us to know that Jesus Christ is the expected Messiah of the Jews. Although the people did not understand him as the expected Messiah due to the interpretations he gave to such expectations. So in the New Testament period, many Jews strongly anticipate for the coming of the kingdom of God. We can see the evidence in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 1, verse 6 to 7, when the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, when will thou restore the kingdom back to Israel? So the expectation grows stronger under the foreign dominations, especially during the Roman period, as people long for divine intervention to restore justice, restore peace, and national independence. So the hope for God's kingdom was not merely political, but also spiritual, involving the fulfillment of God's promises to his people and the establishment of his righteous reign. So, the Messianic expectations in the New Testament world was divided into political and spiritual interpretation. The political interpretation envisioned a Messiah who would be immediately a national leader, overthrowing the Roman rule, restoring Israel's sovereignty. While the spiritual Messiah is a Messiah who will bring forgiveness, righteousness, renewal of the covenant relationship between God and His people. That is a spiritual Messiah. So the New Testament presents Jesus Christ as the fulfillment of the Messianic hope, but in a way that redefines this expectation, establishing a spiritual kingdom rather than a political debate. Jesus' ministry did not capture a political debate because it was a peaceful aim that comes to reconcile men unto God. So he came for peace. And one of his teachings to his disciples said, I have not come to abolish the law, but I have come to fulfill them. So this led to both acceptance by his followers and rejection by those expecting a different kind of deliverance. So we have seen the background of the New Testament. So, in summary, the intertestamental period is the silent period. The most of the Bible, we observe that there was a gap between Malachi and the New Testament. Such period is a silent period. And we have seen that there are a lot of conflicts. And we have seen the period, and we have seen. And for us to understand the background of the New Testament, it is very important for us to know the political context, religious context, cultural context, and the Messianic expectation. So thank you for listening to lecture 1. If you have questions, send it. You can now ask. Thank you.